What's up, my friends, and welcome into the PHOY Phillies podcast. Hope you're doing well, and I hope you have your oar and your arc made, because I just looked out the window and all of a sudden the tree behind me looks like it's about to fall over, and my car's parked under it. So we'll see what happens. This could be great. Welcome into the PHOY Phillies podcast. Hello to everybody. If you are joining us, we appreciate it. If you're going to join us late because the Flyer show is still going on, I totally understand. Rick Tocchet news is way more important than what we've got to talk about. So Rick Tocchet's press conference was today. I listened to it a little bit on the radio on my driving around in between John's show and the Phillies show. My thoughts as somebody who talks about the Phillies, to talk about the Flyers, my thoughts are it's a veteran coach who obviously has Flyers ties, and that's kind of what they tend to lean upon when called and pressed into duty like that. So I'll be interested to see. They use the word relationship building a lot when it was talking about him. I'll be interested to see what happens with this team because Danny Briere made it very clear that it is a fluid situation still. They are not deviating from the plan just because Rick Tocchet is now on board. I still think it's going to take some time. This is still a team clearly in a rebuild, but I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for what is going to happen in June. Even though they fell back a couple of spots in the draft lottery, I'm excited to see what happens in the draft. I'm excited to see year two with Matvei Michkov. Excited to see if Jet Luchenko makes a more immediate impact. Shouldn't say immediate, more lasting impact than the couple games that he got last year. Excited for this Flyers team, but that's my Flyers talk for the day. But I understand if you're still hanging out with the Flyers crew. Totally understand as to why, because it's a whole lot more fun to talk about a new coach than it is to talk about a struggling starting pitcher. And that's where we begin today's PHOY Philly show. By the way, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We start, of course, with Aaron Nola, because I think it's become pretty unavoidable at this point to talk about Aaron Nola because Aaron Nola has kind of done this to himself. It's another bad start for Nola on Wednesday. Obviously, no game yesterday. Phillies start a 3-game series with the Pirates tonight. We'll talk more, assuming, Earth still exists by the end of this show. But we'll talk more about that later in the show. The last time the Phillies took the field, Aaron Nola pitched poorly. And it's his 7th loss of the season. He's now 1-7 with a 6.16 ERA. He is tied for the league. I don't know if it's worst or most league most losses in the season with Antonio Senzatella and Charlie Morton. And funny enough, he actually has the best ERA of the three. He's at 6.1. Senzatella's at like 6.4. And Morton got demoted out of the Orioles starting rotation, which is a mess, by the way. So to get demoted out of that rotation, you really have to pitch poorly because it's really been Sugano, and that's about it. Like the rotation's been bad, and it's why the Orioles are under 500 and extremely underwhelming to begin the year. But that's the company that Aaron Nola finds himself in through the first 10 starts of the year. He's 1-7. And quite frankly, of his first 10 starts, can you say he's had 3 good starts? I can say he's had 2. I can say in back-to-back starts against the Chicago Cubs, he was very good. And against the Arizona Diamondbacks, he was very good. He went 7 innings, 1 earned run, just 1 walk, 3 hits against the Cubs, struck out 6. The next start, 6 innings, 6 shutout innings, 8 strikeouts, just 1 walk, 4 hits, and was really good. So 13 innings combined, 1 earned run, 14 strikeouts, 7 hits, 9 base runners. And his ERA went from 6.4 all the way down to 4.6. And it looked like he was trending in the right direction, but it wasn't a particularly great start against Cleveland on Friday night's game. Now, granted, the Phillies offense didn't help him out at all. It was a jet-lagged, travel-weary team that just never came to play that day. So Nola didn't pitch particularly well, gave up 4 earned runs in 5 innings pitched and took the loss. And then on Wednesday, was probably his worst start of the season. It might have been one of his worst starts of his career. He goes just 3 2/3, doesn't get out of the 4th, gives up a career-high 12 hits, gives up 9 earned runs, 13 total base runners. And the issue that Aaron Nola has throughout most of his career reared its ugly head again in this one, where he gave up 3 more home runs. And we're now to a point with Aaron Nola where he has given up 11 home runs in the 8 starts that weren't the starts against the Diamondbacks and the Cubs. So 0 home runs in those 2 starts. And he actually has 2 other starts with no home runs, but they weren't the best starts in the world. 2 starts where he pitched really well this year, no home runs. The rest of his 8 starts, 11 home runs in 36 and 2/3 innings pitched. He's giving up effectively a home run a little more than every 3 innings pitched. It's less than every 4 innings pitched because that would be 44 innings. I mean, listen, I have been an Aaron Nola defender. I said before the season how I believed he was a guy who could survive a velocity dip because he's a command pinpoint type of pitcher. He is a control guy that never really gets in his own head, cool, calm, collected, gives up a hit, doesn't bother him. As Futz points out, really don't see him get affected by a base hit or a hard contact or anything like that up until this past game. You're right, Futz. It felt like, because there was a couple of balls that he gave up that came off the bat at 65 or 58 that found soft spots, and those are frustrating as a pitcher. But those are ones where you go, hey, I made a good pitch. I'm pitching well. Let's get out of it. Let's battle back and we'll get out of it. That didn't seem to be the mindset of Aaron Nola on Wednesday night, where it just all compiled. It all snowballed for him. And it was probably, I could sit here. I have to go back and look at every box score of his, 11-year career, but it's up there amongst the worst starts that he's made as a Philly in his professional career. And the trend, obviously, is the home runs that he's allowed. But that's been something that he's done over his entirety of his career. He's given up 25 or more home runs on multiple occasions throughout his career. In fact, just to give you the exact number, he gave up 27 in 2019. He gave up 26 in 2021. He gave up 32 in 2023. He gave up 30 last year. He's on pace after 9 starts to give up well over 30 this year as well. It's something that you live with Aaron Nola when he's pitching well, right? So you go back to those seasons that he gave up all those home runs. 2019, despite giving up 27 home runs, he had a 3.80 ERA. He was okay. He threw a lot of innings, 200 innings, as he does most of the time. But a 3.80 ERA is good enough to keep you in games. The following full season, 2021, was not a good year for him. A 4.6 ERA, giving up 20 home runs. The 2023 year, again, not a good year. Last year was a much better year at 3.5, but he gave up the 30 home runs. So it is something that has correlation to say when he gives up a lot of home runs, he tends to have lesser years, because the year that he gave up 19 home runs, he had a 3.2 ERA. The year that he finished third in the Cy Young Award, he gave up 17 home runs and had a 2.37 ERA. Now, I'm not expecting Aaron Nola to ever be 2.37 again. I think that was an elite year from Aaron Nola. It was his best season of his career, and I don't expect him to duplicate that at any point in his career, especially now as he gets older and the velocity is dipping and the metrics are going in the wrong direction. But I do say this to say he's lived through high home run seasons before. So it's not the home runs per se. I mean, they play a huge part. I'm not discrediting them either. But it's not the home runs per se that are like the utmost issues for me. The issue that I have is that more times than not, he's just not been sharp. He only got 6 whiffs in the game on Wednesday night. Now, again, I know he only got 11 outs, but he only got 6 whiffs on all of the swings that he generated. He gave up 12 hits and only got 11 outs. He gave up more hits on Wednesday than he got outs recorded. But the more important thing to me, and you hear me talk about this all the time, is the hard hit contact, his hard hit percentage, his barrel rates, and how many balls did he give up that were batted at 95 miles an hour or more. Well, he gave up 13 batted balls at 96 miles an hour or more on Wednesday, and 8 of those 13 balls were hit at over 100 miles an hour. So it's not like, yeah, he gave up a couple where it was like 65, 58 that found some soft spots, and that's just unlucky BABIP type stuff. But for the most part, this was just a collective poor start for Aaron Nola, where the Cardinals had a game plan. They ambushed him when they needed to ambush him. He didn't put any hitters away. They felt comfortable hitting behind in the count. They felt comfortable hitting late in the count. They felt comfortable hitting with 2 strikes. And Aaron Nola really wasn't able to put a lot of hitters away. And because of that, he gives up 13 balls of 96 or more. And again, 8 of which came off the bat at 100 miles an hour or more. And on those 96-mile-an-hour or more batted balls, the 13 of which he gave up, the Cardinals had 8 hits. They had 8 hits and 9 base runners. 8 hits and an error in the game allowed for 9 base runners on balls that were hit on 96 miles an hour or more. They squared him up on Wednesday. And it really ended up being his worst start of the year. And quite frankly, I don't think it was particularly close. And I think if I went back and looked at all the box scores, and maybe I'll do that over this weekend because I have no life and I'm a nerd, maybe I will go back and look at all the box scores to see. I'm not necessarily looking for how many runs he gave up, but I'd love to see how many hits he surrendered in past games that he didn't pitch well. And I'd love to see how much hard contact he surrendered in those games, because 13 balls at 96 miles an hour or more is like ridiculous. I mean, especially considering the fact that he didn't get out of the 4th inning. It's almost mind-boggling how bad of a start this was. So on top of all of that, he also only threw 49% of his pitches in the zone. His command is something that we've talked about. We're going to talk about it in just a second as well. But his command this year has not been good. He is a guy, as I said earlier in the show, who relies on his pinpoint command, his accuracy, running the two-seamer back on the hands of lefties, running the breaking ball, the curveball down and away to righties, mixing in a changeup, mixing in the cutter, which really has not been very good throughout the course of his career. But he continues to try to use it, but like mixing in his pitch as well, changing speeds, throwing strikes, getting ahead, staying ahead, and pinpoint accuracy. Like if you were to say what is Aaron Nola's strength, it's command, it's control, and it's poise. And he's only had really one of those things so far, and he had none of those things on Wednesday night. And oh, by the way, all of those things that I just talked about, the home runs allowed, the hits allowed, the hard contact, the lack of whiffs, the lack of pitches within the strike zone, this was after the Phillies staked him a 5-1 lead. So he gives up a run in the first. Okay, it is what it is. He gives up a run in the first. So unless you're talking about like betting the no-run first inning, it's 1 run. He limits the damage. The Phillies come out and ambush Sonny Gray for 5 runs in the first inning. Nick Castellanos homers and they add 5 runs in the first. And then Aaron Nola proceeds to give those runs not right back, but basically right back. So it's 5-1 after 1, and it's 6-5 at the end of the third. So he gives up 5 runs in the third inning. The Cardinals take the lead. Schwarber hits a home run to make it 6-6 again. And you can say, listen, I know you've not pitched well today. You've given up 6 runs in 3 innings. But can you please provide us a shutdown inning? Can you please give a quick, efficient, effective inning so that we can get back up to the plate? Because we're jumping on Sonny Gray. He wasn't good either. He only went 3 2/3. He gave up 7 earned runs. He gave up 8 hits. He gave up 3 home runs just like Aaron Nola did. This is the type of game that you should have won. Even if you win at 7-5, you go, okay, well, it was a bad pitching performance from Aaron Nola, but we locked it down and it is what it is. Because those last 5 runs that were given up, right? The runs that were given up by Taijuan Walker and Carlos Hernandez, like, I don't particularly take a whole lot of stock into them because Aaron Nola had basically deflated the room. And I'm not going to blame it solely on him. Like they did, those two guys did give up 5 runs in 3 2/3 innings pitched. So it is on them too to be a stopgap, because the difference between the game being 9-7 and being 14-7 is a substantial gap. And I'm not like absolving them of their sins in this game, but there is a deflation of the air in the room when, okay, your starter gives up 1. Hey, we just got you 5. You gave them all right back. We tied it back up, and then you gave up 3 more. And it's 9 earned runs in 3 2/3 innings. And even though we score in the 4th and make it 9-7, it just feels like the life was deflated from the Phillies in that game. And that's just all of that combined, like really plays into the fact that this was probably Aaron Nola's worst start of the season. So there's 3 things to me that really stand out as to what is the issue with Aaron Nola so far. And these 3 things, I think, all play a part. And it's some of it's no duh, some of it's obvious, some of it is not anything more than surface level. But I think these three things are the biggest issue for me with Aaron Nola so far. The first is his command. His command remains an issue throughout the season. As I said earlier, 49% of his pitches on Wednesday were in the zone. He only got 14 called strikes all night. So balls that either weren't whiffs or balls that were put in play aside, and then pitches that were called balls, of course. He only got 14 called strikes all night. Pair that with the fact that he only got 6 whiffs, and you're talking about 20 pitches that were either not balls, that were either not put in play, or that were either not fouled back. 20 total pitches. That's just way too low of a number. And it kind of points as to why he struggled so much. And again, we've talked about this a ton, but his first pitch strike numbers continue to not be good. He's up to 61%, and he was trending in the right direction heading into Wednesday, but he's still 4% below his career average. And now he's only 0.7% better than Major League Baseball average for 2025, which historically over the course of his career, he's been well above. And as I said, 4 percentage points below his career average. And he's had years where he's 6, 7, 8, 9% better than that. And that's really telling as to why he's struggling. He's falling behind on too many hitters. Now, on Wednesday's game, he ended up throwing 10 first pitch strikes to the 17 Cardinals who saw more than one pitch. But at one point, he was only 2 for 9, including 4 straight batters in the second inning. He started with a ball. Now, they only got 1 base runner, and that was actually his only clean inning of the game. But he's falling behind in too many counts. And as we've talked about in the past, when he falls behind, that's when he has to use the knuckle curve as a get-me-over strike as opposed to a tumbling fall through the zone pitch to get swings and misses. That's when he has to come into the zone with the fastball. That's when instead of running the two-seamer on the hands and backing it up over the zone, he has to start it on the inner edge to lefties and back it more over the zone, or to righties, he has to run it back a little bit further over the heart of the plate. This is where he starts getting hard hit contact. This is where he starts getting not a lot of whiffs. This is where he's not giving up a ton of soft contact. And because of him falling behind in all of these counts, it really is playing a huge part, and it's impacting Aaron Nola in a pretty significant way that he's just not able to get out of. But it's not just the first pitch strike thing that's been a concern. His command across the board is down. His walk rate has gotten incrementally worse in each of the last 4 seasons. In 2022, he was at 3.6%. It was a really, really good season for Nola in terms of not walking a lot of hitters. Then in 23, a bad year for him, at least in terms of ERA and things like that, it jumped to 5.7. Last year, a better year in terms of ERA, it went up to 6.1. And now it's at 7.3%. It's the most it's been in a long time. Again, a guy who thrives on command and control is now walking over 7% of the hitters that he faces. This just makes things enormously difficult. And this is where the argument of, well, his fastball is diminishing velocity, and that's a problem, is an agreeable statement. Because if your fastball's at 90 or 91, but you're hitting your spots and you're mixing speeds and you're changing up speeds and you're throwing strikes and you're getting ahead in the count and you're making it so that hitters don't know what's coming next, that's where you become a really effective pitcher, even with that lack of velocity. I mean, the ultimate example, of course, is Jamie Moyer, but you could pinpoint guys throughout the course of their career. You could pinpoint the guy that the Phillies are facing tonight, who has had, intermittent success over his career. Now, not entirely I wouldn't say he's a good pitcher by any means, but has had a good start to the year in Andrew Heaney. He's in the 3rd percentile of fastball velocity this year. He's averaging less than 90 miles an hour. You could take a look, and now granted, I will say this, a lot of the names that I'm going to throw out between the 2 that I already gave in Moyer and Heaney, you could take a look at guys like Oliver Perez, who pitched for 7 billion years. A lot of these guys have the benefit of being left-handed. Now, Aaron Nola, of course, is not left-handed, and that plays a part for sure. But I think overall, you can live with a regression in velocity if all of the other things are playing well. Those things are not playing well for Aaron Nola right now. So that's the concern level for me. The second piece of issue that I'm having, as I said earlier and talked about it with the 96 mile an hour exit velocity. He's given up a lot of hard contact. His hard hit percentage this year is 43.6%. His career is at 35%. He's never had a season in which he's been in the 40s in terms of hard hit percentage. He is giving up far more hard hit contact than he ever has before. Batters also have a 9.4% barrel rate against him, which is, again, a career worst. The hard hit numbers, I think, are the biggest concern out of everything because it's when he has to find himself back in the zone, down 1-0, down 2-1, down 3-1, where he's got to battle back in the count, and it becomes a hitter's count, and it becomes a fastball count. That's where the command comes into play. If he's not pinpointing the two-seam fastball, he's going to end up running a lot of pitches over the heart of the plate, and that's where he gives up a lot of his home runs. The third piece that plays into this is his two most relied upon pitches, his fastball and his knuckle curve, are being hit at insane rates this year compared to his career and even compared to the last couple of years. Batters have never hit more than 221 in a given season off of Aaron Nola's knuckle curve. This year, that number is up almost 90 points. Batters are hitting 310 off the knuckle curve this year. And then going back to the hard hit thing, his average exit velocity on the knuckle curve this year is 87 miles an hour, which is the second worst of his major league career. Then we talked about the fastball. Last year, opponents hit 169. This year, they're up 113 points. They are hitting 282 off of his fastball this season. And the 91.8, the nearly 92 miles an hour exit velocity on average that he's giving up on that fastball is a career worst. So he's throwing less first pitch strikes. He's getting beat when he has to come back into the zone. His two most important pitches have not been good this year. He's generating less chase, resulting in less whiff, while giving up harder contact on the pitches that he does get swings and misses out of the zone on. He's giving up more contact out of the zone than he ever has before. All of this encapsulates to say, Aaron Nola has not been good this year. And I defended the guy for a really long time. And I just spent 25 minutes like roasting the guy. I feel terrible. You know, I like the guy. He's an innings eater. I have been a Nola defender for a long time. But I think at this point in the season, I have very little to no trust in an Aaron Nola start. And again, those two starts against the Cubs and the Diamondbacks were excellent. You know, they were kind of vintage Nola. I think Trey Turner used that phrase, vintage Noles, he said. And they were great. They were really good starts. But other than that, I mean, I'm looking at probably one other start that was even effective. I think about the starts that he made back-to-back games against the Cardinals and the Giants. Didn't give up a lot of runs against the Cardinals, but walked 4. Then in the Giants start, did give up a lot of runs and gave up 13 base runners. I think about the start against the Mets. I thought that was probably his third best start of the season. Now, he ended up giving up 4 earned runs because Rob Thompson tried to get a 7th inning out of him, which you remember if you look back, the bullpen had been taxed the week prior. He was trying his absolute best to get 3 more outs. If you would have ended that start after 6, it would have been a fine start. It would have been 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 5 hits, 5 strikeouts. You would have felt pretty good about it. But because of the fact that he went back out there, it was 6 1/3, 4 earned runs, 7 hits, 2 home runs, and the numbers got inflated because of that. That's the only other start that I felt like Aaron Nola was able to battle like normally Aaron Nola does. It's the only other start that I felt good about the numbers that Aaron Nola produced, even with the 4 earned runs that he allowed. So all of that to say, I just talked for 25 straight minutes about this guy. All of that to say, I just don't feel good about him right now. And I totally understand as to why you don't either. So let's pause for a moment. On the other side, we are going to talk about somebody who has pitched well over the last couple of weeks. Give that guy a little bit of credit. We're also going to preview the Pirates series, and we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates in specific as to why we're going to do it again. You're probably tired of hearing me do it, but we're going to do the salary cap floor thing again because the Pirates continue to make Major League Baseball look bad. So we'll talk about that at the end of the show as well. But first, let's pause for just a moment and tell you about some of our friends here at PHOI. All right, let's start with our friends at Art of Words because, listen, a picture, of course, is worth 1,000 words, but this local Philly artist is able to prove that with unbelievable pieces that are made entirely from handwritten words. I showed you a couple weeks ago the one that I have had for years. Obviously, I was much younger. I didn't work at PHOI. In fact, PHOI didn't exist and there was no partnership. I got it because it was so darn cool. It's Brad Lidge after the final out of the 2008 World Series when he was down on his knees with his arms raised right before Ryan Howard just absolutely took him and Carlos Ruiz out. And every handwritten word on that piece of art is the results of all 162 regular season games plus the postseason. It is so darn cool. But you can get any type of team across any type of city. Like think about the Eagles, every Eagle ever forming the link, every Philly ever shaping Citizens Bank Park. They are unforgettable gifts for your sports fans, housewarming gifts for your graduation season is upon us. Maybe that's an awesome outside the box gift. And of course, Father's Day is about a month away. So any occasion that you want to give a gift, the Art of Words has you covered. Art of Words started selling at the K-Lot and Rice's Flea Market and credits Phillies fans for launching his career. It's available in dozens of teams and cities. There's something for everybody. There's one with Beaver Stadium and a whiteout that's waiting for me at the PHOI studios when I get back. Super excited to get my hands on that one as well. Art of Words has been featured on the Today Show, ESPN, TED Talks. You can check out all of the art out and all of the workout at artofwords.com. Once again, that's artofwords.com. And at checkout, use the promo code PHLY for 15% off of your purchase. All right, our presenting sponsor of today's show, our friends over at Bet365, because whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And 90 million users worldwide will attest to that because you can live stream over 780,000 events each and every year. And that is why Bet365 is the pioneer of in-game betting. You can live bet, in-game bet up to 78 different sports. So you can get in on all of the action as it unfolds. Now, if you thought maybe on Wednesday night that St. Louis was going to battle back because Aaron Nola, as we talked about, wasn't pitching particularly well, you probably could have got a very favorable line on the money line over your hometown baseball team and would have cashed out relatively easy after they ended up winning that game 14-7. But anyway, new customers will get $150 back in bonus bets no matter what you bet when you bet $5, win or lose. So here's how you're going to do it. Sign up, use the code PHOY365, deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 and get that $150 back in bonus bets whether you win or lose. Bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and so much more. And whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, welcome back to the PHOI Phillies podcast here. Again, presented to us by our friends over at Bet365. I want to say hello to everybody in the chat. K-Red, Player One, and the Mad Cats. We got Futz, Peelin' Onions, who is secretly John Kruk, as we found out, the secret identity of Peelin' Onions. Hello to everybody who's watching, and hello to everybody who is in the chat. The question there, if we can go back in the chat to Player One and the Mad Cats, asking, is it possible that he's just running out of gas, referring to Aaron Nola? And follows up saying he's thrown so many pitches in his career. It's certainly possible. We talked about this plenty, but Aaron Nola, since 2020, has thrown the most innings, across Major League Baseball. He's one, Zach Wheeler's two. So there is something to be said for consistency and to take the ball every fifth day. I think it means something. I think it helps you get paid. And I think it's why it helped Aaron Nola get paid. Because the cliche of best availability or best ability is availability does hold true. Now, when it comes to pitching, you still have to have good stuff. You still have to be able to strike guys out. You still have to be able to accumulate outs, right? It doesn't matter how you get those outs, but you still have to be able to do those things. So, yes, there is certainly an aspect of you got to be good, right? I could go out there and throw innings. I'm not going to be good. But I could go out there and give you 6 innings every night. We're going to lose 40-0. But you get my point. Innings by themselves don't pay a guy, but they certainly don't hurt. I think about all of these studs over the years that, or guys that were on their way to stardom that have had substantial injury concerns, right? The big one in the 2000s is Steven Strasburg, right? Steven Strasburg was the next coming of, you name it, Nolan Ryan, Sandy Koufax, Bob Gibson. Now, obviously, those guys are all Hall of Famers because they, at least the two of those guys, and Koufax in the shorter sample size, were utterly dominant. So maybe that's unfair, but those are the type of guys that like you would hear conversations about with Steven Strasburg, was like, this guy's going to be the truth. And he was for a little bit. But I think that obviously injuries derailed his career. Jacob deGrom might be the ultimate example. When Jacob deGrom is healthy, Jacob deGrom is a top 5 pitcher in baseball and was for a really long time, and never got helped out, of course, by the fact that, he didn't get a lot of run support and never got a lot of, never had really had a full gamut of seasons in a row where he was, pitching 30 or 32 starts. A guy that did throw a lot of starts that didn't get a lot of run support is Felix Hernandez. Right? He won a Cy Young, and I think he won 10 games or 11 games that one year in Seattle. Like, he was a model of consistency for a majority of his career and never got a lot of run support. So you need a lot of those things to rack up wins, to have good ERA, to have good WHIP. All of those things need to play into like accumulation, like an accumulation of all of those things to, have a successful career. But innings are important. But maybe it is at this point just kind of running. He's kind of run his course. And that's not that wouldn't be a concern if it weren't for the fact that he has multiple years left on his contract at a pretty sizable amount of money. Now, listen, I was of the camp that I would have paid Aaron Nola. I wanted Aaron Nola to return. I think the alternative was you would have had to have hoped that somebody in the last 2 free agency periods would have signed with you. And whether that would have been Max Fried this year or getting Yoshinobu Yamamoto or Roki Sasaki, all of those things weren't guarantees. Keeping Aaron Nola felt for the most part as the most likely outcome, because I think another guy they could have thought about was Sonny Gray, who you saw the other night hasn't pitched very well this year either. He's at a 4.5 ERA himself. And then K-Red brings up a good point. Sometimes there is for nothing more than trying to keep him away from a division rival. The Braves were very publicly in on Aaron Nola. So were the St. Louis Cardinals. And that was one of those situations where I think if you wanted Aaron Nola, you were going to pay Aaron Nola what free agent dictated. Looking back on it, could you have brought in a guy, and I think it was brought up earlier in the chat, could you have brought in a guy like a Nathan Eovaldi? Sure, you could have, but you knew what you had with Aaron Nola. And I think familiarity and comfortability played a part in the return of Aaron Nola. Plus, again, consistency and the ability to take the ball every 5th day. Now, if this gets worse, we're going to be talking about, Taijuan Walker's $17 or $18 million a year as like pennies compared to Aaron Nola's 24, 25 a year. But I think at the time, it's one of those situations where you were paying for the first couple of years with the understanding that maybe years 5, 6, and 7 weren't going to be very good, or years 6 and 7 could have been, you weren't even getting a lot of starts out of them. I don't think any of us were anticipating. Well, maybe some of us weren't anticipating. I know if you talk to one Pat Egan, he was, fiddling as Rome burned. But I think most of us would have felt that this was going to happen in years like 6 and 7 of the contract, not necessarily year 3. And so, yeah, I think there is probably some truth to the fact that maybe he's just, his arm is getting fatigued. He's thrown a lot of innings and made a lot of starts over the last couple of years. All right. Before we pause again, because I apologize, I end up rambling and we have some more bills to pay. I do want to talk about one Phillies player that has pitched well and deserves some credit, because we gave him vitriol at the beginning of the season, and rightfully so. He was terrible at the beginning of the season, but has been much better as of late. The command is better. The slider shape is better. I've talked about that a lot. And he's not falling behind in nearly as many counts as he did early in the season. And that, of course, is Jordan Romano. Romano's been very, very good over his last handful of outings. Hasn't given up an earned run. In fact, hasn't given up a run in the month of May. Hasn't given up an earned run since April 23rd against the New York Mets. His ERA has fallen. Now, listen, I'm gonna give you two numbers, and they both sound terrible, and they are terrible, but it's trending in the right direction. And that's the main takeaway I think you make of this. His ERA dropped from 13.5 to 8.22. And now, yes, that 8.22 is still not good. It's still a bad number, but it shows you that over the course of a smaller stretch, because it's still early in the season, he's dropped his ERA 5 full points. And again, it's outings 12 through 17 for a guy who's really only throwing an inning each time, right? He has 15 and a third innings pitched over 17 outings. But I go back to the appearance he made against the Miami Marlins, where he went 2/3 of an inning, gave up 6 earned runs, was just dreadful, gave up 2 home runs, came into the game with an 11-4 lead, and the Phillies won the game 11-10 and had to go to, I believe Jose Alvarado ended up closing the game out. It was either Alvarado or Kerkering, I forget who it was, but had to go to one of those 2 guys to get the final out of the game when they really didn't need to have to pitch. So of all the earned runs that he's given up, which he's given up 14 of them, 6 of them came in that outing. And so I'm not going to excuse the other 8, but he's been much better as of late than he was in the beginning portions of the year. So a save against the Cubs, an inning pitched, 1 strikeout, no base runners, 1, 2, 3. An inning pitched against the Diamondbacks, no base runners, 3 quick outs. An inning pitched against the Diamondbacks the 2 nights later, 1 hit, 1 strikeout, got out of it relatively routinely. An inning pitched against the Rays, did give up 2 hits, but struck out 1 and gave up no runs. The last 2 outings, 5 strikeouts, 2 innings pitched, no base runners. A save against the Guardians, a save against the Cardinals. He has been much better. And the efficiency, I think, is there as well. As I said, in 4 of those 6 outings, he faced 3 hitters. The other 2 were 4 and 5. He's thrown 13, 8, 15, 14, 13, and 13 pitches to get those outs required. The slider has been much better. Its shape, its usage, the form, all better. The fastball has life again. He was at 94 early in the season. He's back up to like 96, 97 for the most part. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I think he's on trajectory to like be a all-star that he was in 2022 and 2023. But if he's going to pitch this way, and maybe not, he's going to give up runs. Players, everybody gives up runs. But if he's going to pitch this way, it's instilling confidence in you and in me that we didn't have early in the season. And I'm talking about like into the end of April that we didn't have. And so to have that confidence now compared to what we did a couple of weeks ago, I think is important for this Phillies bullpen that still is in desperate need of depth. Now, he's pitched better. I think Joe Ross has pitched better. I think Tanner Banks. Now, I praised Tanner Banks last week, and then he immediately ended up giving up a home run to the Rays, but Tanner Banks has been better. Orion Kerkering got a couple of huge outs the other night against Cleveland, and then, has been up and down, but I think if you can rely upon him, that's important. Strom and Alvarado are your consistents. They still need another arm in this bullpen. There's no question about it. And if I were to make a decision today, I would say they need another high-leverage right-handed reliever. The problem is that's going to cost you. And every team is going to be in the run for a high-leverage right-handed reliever. It's why Carlos Estevez cost so much last year. It's why the Royals made a deal, and I'm blanking on the guy's name, that Lucas Erceg that they got from the A's cost as much as he did. These high-end relievers at the deadline, even if they're rentals, like Estevez was, cost teams money. So if you can get some buoyancy from your bullpen, especially the guys that weren't very good in the beginning of the year, to battle back in a little bit and kind of bounce back in and round back into shape, that helps you a lot in saying, yeah, we need a reliever still, but maybe we don't need 2. Maybe we don't have to go and get 2 high leverage relievers. We can go and get 1 high leverage reliever and feel comfortable in who we're acquiring and, kind of help stem the tides a little bit, if you will. So I don't know what move is to be made, right? It's May 16th. Trades very infrequently happen. Rafael Montero getting traded to the Braves as early as he did in the season very infrequently happens. But I think it allows you to kind of have a perspective of what you're looking for, which still is a high leverage reliever, don't get me wrong, but maybe it's a high leverage reliever and not 2 high leverage relievers. All right, we're going to pause again in just a second. And yes, Peel and Onions. I think there's validity to it. Peel and Onion says about the pitch tipping thing. It says, so am I wrong in saying that ever since the pitch tipping thing, he's been who we thought he could be? Absolutely. Now, I don't know. They didn't come out publicly and say what exactly he was doing to tip his pitches. Again, maybe an undertasking that we can go back and dive into for one of our like Tuesday or Thursday videos. I think that would be really intriguing. But whatever mechanically he fixed, whatever pitch tipping wise he fixed, it's clearly helped him out over the last 6 appearances. We'll see what happens as this season continues to progress. Like, he's going to give up runs, and there's going to be a day where he looked bad. It just happens, right? And the ERAs for relievers in one bad outing do tend to get inflated. So you could see a guy go from a 3.2 to a 4 after giving up 3 earned runs in an inning. It's just they don't throw enough innings until the end of the season for those, blow up games to not really impact them. So for Romano, I think that these 6 outings that he's had have been a massive step in the right direction. All right, again, we're going to pause for just a moment. When we come back, we're going to start to preview the Phillies and the Pirates series for just a little bit. And I do want to talk about why the Pirates continue to be bad for baseball. But let's pause for just a second and tell you about some of our friends here at PHOI. All right, let's start with our friends over at Shady Rays, because I can't tell you enough about how great Shady Rays it has been for me. Now, obviously, you look out the window, it's dreary, it's overcast, the tree might fall down in my front yard. But if it were a sunny day, if it were a day with no overcast, I would need my Shady Rays because I struggle with reflections off of cars and driving and things like that, especially come the summer months. And our friends at Shady Rays have gotten me the perfect pair that not just matches what I need out of optics, but matches my style as well. They're an independent sunglass company that offer incredible world-class products, and they're rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. And as I said, crystal clear optics are important. The polarized lenses for me are super, super important, and they have incredible durable frames that will not break. But if they do, if you have any issues on one of your outdoor adventures, if they do break or take an unexpected hit, don't worry about it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by their lost or broken replacement guarantee. And if you don't love the pair that you buy, you can exchange them for a new pair or return them worry-free for up to 30 days. So there is no risk to you when you shop. Shady Rays always has your back with personal and fast service. And for PHOI viewers and listeners, head on over to shadyrays.com and save 35% on polarized sunglasses with the code PHLY. Over 300,000 people have rated Shady Rays 5 stars, so use the code PHLY today at shadyrays.com. How about my local casino of choice? Sorry, I was trying to find my copy. I apologize. My ad copy was being slow on me here. My local casino of choice, that, of course, is my friends over at Parks Casino, Street Road exit of I-95 and the Turnpike, easy to get to from any destination in PA or New Jersey. And it's my local casino of choice, not just because I live here. It's because it's my casino of choice because I love all of the different options that they have. But if you don't want to get off the couch, if you're not remotely close to Bet Parks and you don't want to make the drive, that's totally okay, because the Bet Parks online casino has you covered on the Bet Parks app. All the games that you love to play in person at Parks Casino, such as pop culture slots, roulette, cards, dice games, and so much more, can be played on the Bet Parks app. I mentioned those pop culture slots. You can get in on one of my all-time favorite movies as a kid, The Goonies, but they also have Breaking Bad and so much more that you can play right from the palm of your hand. Parks Online Casino has the games that you love, whether you are at home or on the go. Parks Casino, this is how you win. Must be 21 and over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, welcome back to the PHOI Phillies podcast. Tyler Zula here, and our PHOI Phillies podcast is brought to us by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. The Phillies get set for a 3-game set tonight against the Pittsburgh Pirates as they come to town. I think they're going to play this game. I think the weather should pass in time for the game. We got about 5 hours till first pitch still anyway. So I think the weather should pass in time for this game to get underway without any kind of stoppages or anything like that. So the Phillies pitching rotation this weekend is going to be a good one. Ranger Suarez makes his 3rd start of the year. He was excellent in his second start, last week against the Cleveland Guardians. And then Zach Wheeler gets the ball, and then Christopher Sanchez. So before we dive into the Pirates themselves, I just want to baseball nerd out a little bit over Sunday's pitching matchup. How about Christopher Sanchez versus Paul Skenes? This is going to be a fun one. Now, I said the other week, I wish that the Phillies would have played on Mother's Day early because I love watching the Phils with my mom. My mom is a huge baseball fan, and we watch the Phillies a lot together. I would have loved to have watched the game with my mom, but it was, 7 o'clock game. It was a little bit late. This one should feel like, just based on the pitching matchup alone, feels like it has merit to be a Sunday night baseball type of game. Now, the Pirates don't draw. The Pirates are not a good baseball team, but Paul Skenes versus Christopher Sanchez, that is a good pitching matchup. A really good pitching matchup. Paul Skenes at a 2.6, Christopher Sanchez at a 2.8. Both of these guys with good strikeout numbers, dominant stuff. Obviously, Christopher Sanchez with one of the best changeups in all of baseball. Paul Skenes just power arm, power fastball, heavy slider, everything he throws. That splinker that they've talked about now, that's the splitter sinker combo, unhittable. I mean, he hides the ball well. Stuff's just nasty. He's in his second season. He only made like 19 starts last year, 20 starts last year, and he finished third in the Cy Young voting. That's really all you need to know as to how good Paul Skenes is, that he didn't even make the entire season of starts. He didn't make 25. He didn't make 28. He didn't make 30. He didn't make 32. And the only two pitchers that he finished worse than in Cy Young voting were the eventual winner, the Triple Crown winner, in fact, in Chris Sale, and Zach Wheeler, who many tout as the best starting pitcher in all of baseball. That's how good this dude is. I mean, you've seen it. I don't need to tell you. You've seen, whether you've watched the full Pirates game or you've seen his highlights, the domination that Paul Skenes pitches with. 6'5", barrels down the mound at you, throws hard, heavy arm action. It's disgusting how good he is. And like, obviously you can tell that even as a Pirate, like, I rave over this guy. Like, the two guys in the NL Central that I love watching pitch are Paul Skenes and Hunter Green. Just both power arms, electric stuff, will get you with 100 and then wipe out slider or wipe out splitter for Skenes' sake. Like, I love watching those two guys pitch. Sunday's going to be a ton of fun. But let's talk about the Pirates for just a second. This team stinks. I mean, there's no other way to put it. This team is terrible. They're 15-29. They have lost 3 games in a row or more 5 times already this year through the first 45 games. They are the worst offense in all of baseball. They've scored the least amount of runs in all of baseball. They are second to last in hits. I believe they're in the bottom 5 in just about every offensive category. They're in the bottom 5 in hits. They're last in doubles. They're in the bottom 5 in home runs, bottom 5 in average, bottom 5 in slugging, bottom 5 in OPS. They have won just 3 times in the month of May. If there was ever an opportunity, and I say this after the Phillies had won 5 consecutive series, so I say this a little tongue in cheek, but if there was ever an opportunity to bounce back after losing a series and losing it the way that you did to the Cardinals, this Pirates series is prime for that. It's a really, really good opportunity for the Phillies to take at least 2 games at home in this series, because this Pirates team is just, they're brutally bad. I mean, they have already had their manager fired. Derek Shelton's fired after a poor start. And again, like, you could pin this on the team's performance. You could pin it on the fact that they refuse to spend any money and the roster's not any good. But whatever way you slice it, like, the Pirates felt like somebody had to go. And, the old saying, you don't fire players more times than not. So you end up firing the manager. And Paul Skenes acknowledged it after they fired him. It was a couple days or maybe the day after they fired him. He called it unfortunate, said it really wasn't entirely his fault. But he also said that this doesn't change the fact that they're not playing very good baseball. It doesn't change the fact that they're not a very good baseball team right now. They've scored 2 runs or fewer 19 times this year. They are last in runs per game at 3.07 per game, which is by far the worst in Major League Baseball. This is a really, 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 I can't stress really enough, really bad offense. The Phillies pitching should take care of business this weekend. Now, Pirates pitching's been okay. a team 4.01 ERA. They're just slightly above league average, but they've been okay. And Paul Skenes, of course, headlines the rotation. You'll see him Sunday. Andrew Heaney, as we talked about, has pitched decently this year. He's pitched to a 3.5 ERA. The guy pitching in between them is Carmen Mlodzinski, who has a above 5 ERA. He's not been particularly good, but their pitching's been okay so far. Their starting rotation with a 3.9 ERA collectively. They've thrown the 9th most innings of any rotation in baseball this season. As a rotation, they've given up the 5th fewest home runs and have a 1.25 WHIP. Like it's not this elite level rotation. It's not on par with the Phillies. It's not on par with the Mariners. It's not on par with what the Mets have done to begin the season, but it's good. And it's pitched it's probably punched above its weight class a little bit. You know, Paul Skenes is your heavyweight, but Heaney's pitched better than I would have expected him to this point this year. Just trying to go through some of their other stats really quickly to kind of headline. Like as I said, Mlodzinski's not been very good, but you know it's a rotation that should be comfortable in keeping this team afloat, but their offense is so bad that they're not getting any kind of productivity in terms of wins. Mitch Keller's been kind of underwhelming. Bailey Falter had a good start to the year. He's at about a 4, but it's good enough to get you where you need to be. But the offense is so bad that they're struggling, mightily. O'Neal Cruz, 238. Andrew McCutchen, 254. Adam Frazier, 221. Brian Reynolds, 194. They've had to demote Jack Sawinski, who is hitting well below 200. There are guys with, 100 plus at bats who are hitting below 200 on this team. Tommy Pham with 108 at bats, hitting 176. It's really been an offensive struggle for them. Now, a couple of guys have been good. IKF has hit fairly well, 113 at bats. He's got 32 hits. Joey Bart has finally started to kind of come into his own a little bit, hitting 281 with a 401 OBP. But this team doesn't get on base. They don't produce a ton of hits. They don't hit a lot of home runs. It's not a very good offense. This is a team the Phillies should beat up on pretty convincingly. And, we'll see what happens on Sunday. Because Skenes is so good, anything could happen. You could lose this game 2-1, and it's just a product of facing Paul Skenes. He's mowed down offenses in the past. But like this, the trio that is the only thing that would have made this better in terms of a trio pitching for the Phillies is if Jesus Luzardo would have gotten a start tonight instead of Ranger, and you had Luzardo, Wheeler, and Sanchez heading into this one. But Ranger, Wheeler, Sanchez, it's a pretty good pairing. It's a pretty good trio heading into the series against an offense that really, really has been I don't know if I'm able to use the word really anymore. It's just been so dreadful. All right, we got one more ad break to hit, and then we're going to talk about why the Pirates are bad for baseball, and they're not the only team, but why the Pirates are bad for baseball. We'll do that in just a moment, but first, let's pause for just a second and tell you about some more of our friends here at PHLY. All right, let's start with the Hall of Fame app. The Hall of Fame app is an incredible app. It is the experience of a lifetime if you are thinking about getting in on all of the advanced stats, the advanced metrics, the historical data. Basically, for you nerds, and I say nerds as lovingly and convincingly as possible because I'm a baseball nerd as well. If you're looking to get the leg up on the competition when it comes to your bets, this is the exact app for you. So listen, we've all been there before. You have a parlay. It's one leg away, and then you end up watching your team give up a walk-off home run, or you end up watching a player that you need to hit to get a bag and a half, only get a bag, or walk 3 times. I've had that happen before where I took over total 1.5 bags, guy walked 3 times, I got 0 for the day. It's all heartbreaking, right? And it sounds familiar because we've all been there in our betting time as sports betting gets more and more fixed in the games, in the game of baseball or any game for that matter. That is where the HOF app is built to help you fix it. It's started by 2 lifelong sports fans who happen to be Ivy League grads, so they know a thing or two about data and mathematics. But it's not just thinking about your buddy's group chat full of hot takes. It is a full analytics engine that is going to help you hit on your best, give you the best chance to hit on your parlays. It'll help you identify weak legs so you can weed them out even before you make the bet. So whether it's MLB, NBA, NFL, NHL, college sports, the app gives you beautiful charts, clean visuals, and real insight, not just hype, into why your bet might work or why your bet may not work. And with HOF, they have a 4.9 rating in the App Store and over 6,000 five-star reviews. How about this? Our listeners right now can get a 7-day free trial and 50% off their first month just by downloading the app and using the promo code PHLY at checkout. Again, for a limited time only, get 7-day free trial and then 50% off your first month when you use the code PHLY at checkout. Thinking about needing a job, or you're thinking about hiring? LinkedIn and LinkedIn Jobs is the way to go. As a small business owner, you never have the luxury of clocking out early. Your business is always at the forefront of your mind. So whether you're on the clock or you're with your family, you're always thinking about, how do I make my business better? And that's where the hiring partners at LinkedIn Jobs come in. When you clock out, that's when LinkedIn Jobs clocks in. They make it easy for you to post your jobs for free. They'll share it to your network, and you get qualified candidates that you can manage all in one place. They'll help you write job descriptions for you and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with a deep candidate insight pool to help you match with the best candidate possible. You can either post your job for free or you can pay to promote it, and promoted jobs get 3 times more qualified applicants. Based on LinkedIn data, 72% of small businesses using LinkedIn say that LinkedIn helped them find high quality candidates quickly. You can also let your network know that you're hiring. You can even add hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture and get 2 times more qualified candidates. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/Phillies. Once again, that's linkedin.com/Phillies to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right. As I said, we're going to wrap things up today because the Phillies are taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates with a conversation we've had many times, but we have to have it again. The Pittsburgh Pirates are bad for baseball. So are the Colorado Rockies. So are the Miami Marlins. So are the A's. So are the Rays. So are these teams that are so unwilling to spend money, and they have a bad product on the field because of it. And then they end up firing a manager because that's going to change things. Of the 11 teams from 20 to 30, right? That's 11, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Yeah, math is hard. That's 11 teams. Of the 11 teams from 20 to 30, in terms of spending money, in terms of total payroll, there are exactly 3 teams that are 500 or better. The Kansas City Royals are 25-20. They're spending $124 million this year, which is a massive step in the right direction. Last year, they went out and spent a ton of money. They signed Seth Lugo. They signed Michael Wacha. They gave Bobby Witt an extension, which I believe kicks in pretty heavily next year. This year, he's making like $8 million, but that one kicks in pretty heavily next year. They're going to be on the books for probably a good chunk of money next season. The Cleveland Guardians, who are 7 games over 500, despite the fact that they've spent $100 million, pretty much flat. And the Athletics, who are 22-22 and have only have a $75 million payroll. Now, that $75 million payroll, of course, doesn't take into consideration that they're getting a ton of productivity from Brent Rooker, who's making $4 million, from Lawrence Butler, who's making $2.6 million, from Shea Langoliers, who's at $770, from Jacob Wilson, who's at $760, from Gunnar Hoglund, who they just called up, from Nick Kurtz, who they just called up. These guys are making $650,000, $700,000. Eventually, they're going to have to make decisions on these guys. But the A's have only spent $10 million a year on 2 players, Jeffrey Springs and Luis Severino. And both of these guys are guys that they brought in this year. So it was a willingness to finally spend money. They spent about $35 million this offseason. But again, they're the only 3 teams that are above at 500 or better. And before we go any further, let's pause for just a second. I want to say thank you to everybody who was watching along on our streaming services, on our TV platforms. Head on over to allphoy.com to watch the rest of the show because we are now in overtime. All right, overtime continues this conversation. Those teams, as I mentioned, 3 of those teams are at 500 or better. The A's are 22-22, and then the Royals and the Guardians both are above 500. Now, let's talk about the other 8 teams that are not above 500. And coming in at number 20 at $124 million, almost $125 million, are the 7-36 Colorado Rockies. 22, the Reds are 3 games under 500. 23, the Nationals, 9 games under. 24, the Brewers, 2 games under. 26, the Rays, 3 games under. 27, the Pirates, 14 games under. 29, the White Sox, 16 games under. And 30, the Marlins, 10 games under 500. Every team that I just mentioned, for the most part, with the exception of the Rays and the Brewers, who the Brewers have continued to exceed my expectations year after year, because every year I say, all right, they've traded enough of their assets away. This is the year that they're not going to be very good. And then they compete for the NL Central. And the Rays, who have found a formula that works, which is bring up young talent, cultivate really, really, really good starting pitching, and then trade it for more of that young talent. Aside from those 2 teams who have been in the playoffs, at a fairly consistent rate over the last decade or so, you're talking about cellar dwellers in Miami, cellar dwellers in Pittsburgh. Same with Washington over the last basically 7 or 8 years since they went to the World Series. The Reds really have not been super, super competitive. The Rockies, same thing. These teams' unwillingness to spend money continues to plague the league. It continues to cause concerns over the competitive balance of the league. And then these teams go and get competitive balance picks, and they use them, and sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. But their formula is simple. They get good players every once in a while. They'll make a 1-year run. And then before these players hit arbitration or before these players hit free agency, they are moving them for young, controllable pieces. And I understand that not every ownership group is created equally. Not every ownership group is Steve Cohen. Not every ownership group is John Middleton. Not every ownership group are the aliens that run from outer space, that run the LA Dodgers, who have printed fake money to spend $1 bazillion. Right? Not every team is that way, because you have to have ownership money to back it up, right? And you have to have the cash flow to back up your spending. It's why the Dodgers are able to subsidize their contracts, to forego, what's the word I'm looking for? To defer their contracts, because they have the cash flow to back it up. I understand not all teams are created equally when it comes to spending money. But these teams at the bottom of the barrel are there by their own fruition. One team in the last 25 years has won a World Series being in the bottom 10 in terms of spending. It's the 2003 Miami Marlins. That's it. That's the only team in the last 25 years to have won a World Series spending as little as they do. These teams, more times than not, even with the Rays went to a World Series with a pretty low payroll. The A's perfected Moneyball and forgot to tell you that Miguel Tejada was on the team and had 3 aces and blah, blah, blah. But the A's have been were a contender for over a decade. There was not a lot of playoff success, but they were a contender for over a decade. The teams that have been bad for as long as they have. And by the way, the Pirates, in 2015, I am fully convinced the Pirates were one of the 3 best teams in baseball. Now, they ended up having to play in a wild card game, and it's on them for losing the game. I'm not going to say it's not. They lost the game 1-0 to the Giants. But in 2015, I think the Pirates were one of the 3 or 4 best teams in baseball. And then they moved McCutchen. They moved Harrison. They moved Alvarez. Guys started to struggle. There's no doubt about it. But they moved anything and anybody that wasn't a controllable asset and tried to recoup. And they've made some good trades along the way. And then the one trade where they went out and tried to acquire a big-time piece, they got Chris Archer, who, by the way, they gave up Tyler Glasnow, Austin Meadows. Glasnow by himself makes it a bad trade, but Austin Meadows. And there was the third piece, and I forget who it was, but it's somebody I think it might have been Shane Baz. I think it was Shane Baz that they ended up acquiring. They had 3 major leaguers. Now, Meadows ended up being kind of a flash in the pan, but Glasnow is elite when he's healthy. And Baz is getting better and better as his young career goes on. these teams that have unwillingness to spend money are becoming a stain on the MLB. And I can't say that that the league has to interject and force them to sell, because I don't think in like a free market capital society that they can do that. But this is where the argument about the impending strike is going to come up, because owners are going to fight amongst themselves, because the rich owners are going to say, we need a salary cap floor. You idiots need to pull your weight. And the poor owners, relatively speaking, poor owners are going to say, fine, salary cap floor, but salary cap ceiling. And then the rich owners are going to go, no. We're spending money. We're willing to spend money. You got to come up to us. We're not coming down to you. And then they're gonna bicker back and forth. They're gonna argue back and forth like a bunch of kids. And it's gonna get to, no, you blink first. No, you blink first. And that, to me, is where the issue arises. When it's owners versus players, concessions get made. When it's owners versus MLBPA, concessions get made. When it's owners versus owners, that's where the interesting part comes into play. I can't guarantee you that this doesn't get resolved. I can't guarantee you that the answer is simply keep it as it is on the next when the CBA is up. But when owners start to fight owners, that's where I get worried about a strike. And I know it's a year and a half away. It's not at the end of this season. It's the end of next season. It's December of 2026, heading into the 2027 season. But these teams that are unwilling to spend money are either going to have to start spending some money with a cap floor or be prepared for a strike. I saw a tweet from a station account, and I don't know if it was a sports talk radio station in Pittsburgh or what it was. I apologize. I forget who it was. But they basically tweeted out, would you be willing to have a strike, even if it was a full season, to get a salary cap floor? Because nobody hates Pirates ownership group more than the Pirates fans. Nobody hates the ownership groups of some of these teams more than their fan bases. The Pirates fan base is a good fan base. They haven't showed up in a while because they hate the ownership group. I have a lot of friends who are Pirates fans. They are absolutely, positively just annoyed. And to the point where they have like no feelings at all about the Pirates ownership group. The Pirates are a historical franchise. Won a lot of World Series in the 70s, have been good more times than they've been bad up until the 90s, right? And then the 90s, all of a sudden, the ownership group stopped spending money. And the Jason Kendall teams that were so bad, and then they got good for a little bit, and now they're back to being dreadful again. And there's talent that's been in this organization for a long time. I brought up a bunch of them. That 2015 team was a lot of fun. But there's young talent now. Paul Skenes, Jared Jones. This is a team that should be willing to compete, and they're just not, because their ownership group is too cheap to do anything about it. It's really, really, really annoying. And I think as somebody who roots for a team, as somebody who covers a team that has opened the checkbooks over the last couple of years, I think we should consider ourselves very lucky that we have an ownership group in this city that's willing to spend money and willing to compete. Yes, they've not won a World Series, but they've given the team the monetary resources to compete. And that's, to me, more important. I shouldn't say more important. Obviously, if you win with a low payroll, then that's just a bonus. But it's more important to me than trying to cultivate all this young talent and then flipping it for nobody. So I think you should be happy the fact that your team's willing to spend money, even if they've fallen short, even if they frustrate you, even if managerial decisions at times are annoying, even if it was the same run it back team that has been in 2025 that it was in 2024. It's a team that's won more games than they've lost over the last 3 years, and due in a large part because they've been willing to spend a lot of money. Zach Wheeler, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Trey Turner, extending Christopher Sanchez to a deal before they had to make sure they locked him up. Aaron Nola extension. All of these guys have been massively important to the Phillies' success over the last couple of years, even if it hasn't trended into a World Series win. But the alternative is be a Pirates fan. Go talk to, if you have any Pirates friends, check in on them. They're apathetic at best, and they're miserable at worst. And it's just one example of an organization that's unwilling to spend money. All right, that's going to wrap things up for today. I hope you enjoy the weekend series. Please be safe. I know there's a lot of thunderstorm warnings, a lot of flash flood warnings. Please be safe if you're driving. Please be safe if you have anywhere to get to today. Enjoy your weekend. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and come back on Monday well rested. We'll be back on Monday live at 1 o'clock. We'll talk to Bob Cooney at 1:30. We'll get you set for the series ahead. We'll break down this Pirates series. I'm saying this right now. I don't make a lot of predictions on this show. It's baseball. It's fluid. I think that the Phillies absolutely should win this series this weekend. And I've seen a lot of people say that they should sweep this series. I can't go that far because facing Paul Skenes is difficult, but there's no doubt in my mind the Phillies should win 2 out of 3 and get right back on the right track after losing 2 of 3 against the St. Louis Cardinals. So big thank you to everybody in the chat. K-Red, Peel and Onions, Kevin at iRock Philly. Who else do we got? Let's scroll. We're going to scroll up a little bit of ways. Very lively chat today. Futz, David Rosca, Rochelle, Player One in the Mad Cats. Big thanks to everybody for tuning in today. Enjoy your weekend. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back with you Monday live here on PHLY Phillies podcast at 1 o'clock. We'll talk to you then. See you.
We all silly like the mayor.